Hello, planet Earth. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're at IDK, my BFF Jill 730.
My BFF
Jill
730.
I'm Preston L. Young, wishing you warm salutations and congratulations as always. You've made your way to the Buffington Post.
You are invited!
Today I'll be taking a break from the Buffyverse as it is time to review Season 1, Episode 3 of HBO's Westworld. It's The Stray. And so without further ado, let's jump into it. Here we go.
The time has come!
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can't take the sky from me. Take me out to the black, tell them I ain't coming back. Burn the land and boil the sea. You can't take the sky from me. There's no place I can be since I found serenity. But you can't take the sky from me.
So I said in my episode 1 review of this series that I wonder how encumbered the show is going to be by its very big ideas. It's full of ideas. And this episode really, for about the first 40 minutes, had me thinking, oh no, this is too high concept. They're trying to do too much philosophy and, what does it mean to be a person? And also the Wild Wild West elements, and it felt a little much, and there was a lot of exposition going on in this episode, and it felt like, okay, I get it. We need some exposition, we need some kind of grounding for the world and for the characters and all that good stuff, but let's get on with the show. And it wasn't until about the last 15 minutes of the episode that I was back in. Okay, here we go. What the fuck's going on here, And so I will say that I was not impressed with the first 2/3 of the episode. But that's not to say that it wasn't good, because again, it's got so many ideas and my brain is just my life. But there's something to be said about all the exposition, and I hope that this is the last episode that gives us so much exposition, with Arnold and with Teddy and with Bernard and all the extra. It was just come on, let's get to it. I will say, however, that I really liked the Elsie and in my head I've been calling him Fat Thor. I think his name is Luke Hemsworth. He's not Thor, right? I've been calling him Fat Thor, which I know isn't fair because he's not fat, but whatever. I really liked their dynamic. I thought they had a good back and forth, and it was nice to kind of learn about the idea of a backstory and how the backstory informs everything about a character. She says that basically the backstory is the root, and they build everything out from there, which is really interesting. And they're chasing this stray android who, of course, has gone off the grid. He's doing stuff that he ought not be doing, which apparently isn't very uncommon, but what is uncommon is for him to be charting out the stars, making art that's based on the stars. She didn't program him to be curious about the fucking sky, and so that's weird. And Elsie, all season long, has been weird stuff's happening, guys, but everybody's been shh. So I feel for Elsie, and I especially felt for her when she was getting all chased by the android, and she was about to get totally smashed, what the heck? And the thing about him smashing the rock on his head, it's I wonder if that was him, not being able to harm a person, and he wanted to, but he just did it to himself because he so wanted to and realized that he couldn't. So that's really interesting. And I also like this idea of, this whole Arnold story that we get of the androids appearing to go insane because they believe they're hearing the voice of God, which is kind of what we get from this Wyatt character, right? And so that's all very interesting, and I do like the religious elements of the show. There's so much to go through. I mean, you could look at it as a religious text, you could look at it as a philosophical text. It's just, there's so many ideas going into the show, and again, I wonder just how much those ideas are going to hold it down. But beyond that, we learn in this episode that backstory is very important, and I still believe that Bernard is a host, like he's an android, and this episode really reinforced those ideas. And I'm wondering, with backstory being so important, if this whole Arnold thing is a farce, and Ford is actually just trying to provide some kind of backstory for, like, the park that will inform Bernard's decisions? Question mark. We have Bernard. He's having this this other secret conversation with Delores, trying to like see about her progress or, you know, progression in, you know, fucking up, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, we have him, and he's talking to her, and he shows her Alice in Wonderland, and he's hoping that she'll recognize that he's trying to really get to her, and he's kind of like, he's picking her apart, and at the same time, he's expecting her to be a whole person. So Bernard's logic, I feel like, is he doesn't want to be the only one. He wants to see if he can actually relate to another robot. It's like, imagine that you were the first, like, primitive, like, human as we understand humanity within your tribe. Like, you were awake, you knew that you existed, and you started to think about things that didn't have to do solely with survival. You would look around and try and find other bipedal humanoids in your tribe that you felt like saw you and that knew that you saw them and were seeing other things. And basically, I just feel like Bernard is aware, or at least thinks he's aware? Question mark? It's so confusing, right? But I feel like he wants to not be the only one. I feel like he wants to kind of break out of that isolation, because it must be like crazy making to believe that you're the only one of your kind, right? So that's what I was talking about, like primitive man and whatnot, right? And so we see that he's like not on the up and up with what's going on with Delores. Like, she doesn't seem to be clicking in quite the way that he would like for her to. And then we get this stuff with Elsie and Fat Thor, and she talks about the backstory being so important, and we leave from there. We go back to Ford and Bernard and this random engineer guy who's working on one of the hosts. And so engineer has covered the host in this like smock of sorts, and Ford, the Anthony Hopkins character, he gets totally angry. He says, don't treat them like people, they're not like people, blase, 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 they don't have shame, so don't try and treat them with any like humility and respect, etc., right? And right after they have this like exchange, Ford brings up Bernard's dead son, right? We find out that Bernard's, the picture of his son is, you know, he's dead. Womp womp, gone too soon. And I feel like that is Bernard's backstory. And the idea of the backstory and of like how cost effective is it to have like Delores and her father out in this house? It's not very cost effective, but it does reinforce their storyline. It reinforces the idea that they are whatever they're supposed to be, right? And so for Bernard, he goes and he has this like video conference with Gina Torres, You're Beautiful, and they're talking about their dead son and all this other, and my thinking is that he's an android and his backstory is he's got a dead son. And that's a reason for him not to go home, right? And if there's one thing I've learned from my many years covering the Buffyverse, it's that when Gina Torres shows up in a dystopian wonderland, she is not what she seems to be. And so I feel like she's just another computer program. I feel like she is just there to reinforce Bernard's backstory and his role within Westworld. And I think that Anthony Hopkins knows what he's doing to Delores, but rather than say, I know what you're doing, don't do it, or I know what you're doing, go ahead, he's making Bernard kind of rebel and make him think that he's having these ideas independently when really Anthony Hopkins is the omniscient god figure pulling all the strings. I think it's fascinating, and I'm really hoping that that's what's going on, because that's kind of the strongest argument that I have for why Bernard is a robot. And keep in mind, in the last episode, the lady that he's having an affair with, or isn't an affair if he's not really married, what? She said, is that what you're doing? Practicing? And so I do feel like Bernard is practicing being a person, just like Delores. But that's all I have to say about that. But again, backstory is very important, and in this episode we get Teddy, they give him a backstory. Like before it was just kind of like this vague, like, oh, you, this person, and you're a bounty hunter, but you know, you don't have any like real past, you don't have any names in your past, you don't have anything to strive for or run away from, and now he does. They Ford kind of plugs him into this new scenario that he's created that hopefully will have to do that white church, and all these robots that are hearing God are probably gonna like go cray, but anyway. Yeah, plugging him in, it gives James Marsden more to do as this Teddy character, and we see that there is a lot of interaction, like every day there's interaction between Maeve and Teddy, and so I'm hoping that in the next episode we will have Maeve say the violent delights and violent ends to Teddy and start his kind of waking up process. Again, like I said, that the second episode felt more like an ensemble, and this one really went back to Delores, and I'm hoping that they do that, like stick with Delores for one episode and, you know, check in with all the other characters, and then for the next episode, check in with Delores, but really focus on one character. Like last week it was Maeve, and this week it's Delores. Hopefully next week it'll be Teddy, and so on and so forth throughout the season. I feel like that would be a great way for us to kind of like keep Delores as being our protagonist without having her to carry the entire show. Does that make sense? I hope so. But coming back to Delores, I like the second interaction that we get between Bernard and Delores in this episode, in which, you know, at this point, he's feeling kind of like put upon, and like it's not going to work with Delores, and here's Anthony Hopkins saying, oh, they're not like us, blah, 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 blah. And he's about to like give up on her and set her back, and she surprises him. She surprises herself, and she says she wants to be free. And I really like that moment where he feels like maybe she is in there, maybe she's in there, right? And another element of this episode that allows for Delores to be very human, as we understand it, is that she has this very human exchange with Teddy. She's saying, you know, someday doesn't exist. It's a fiction. It's like a woman saying, oh, you say we're gonna get married someday, but you still won't put a fucking ring on it. Like, it just felt very natural, and it seems like a conversation that you would overhear like a couple having at dinner, you know what I'm saying? And I really like that, and of course we get Delores going back to her homestead and all the good stuff. She's about to get totally raped again, and the gun that she found in the morning that kind of like disappeared, turns out she had gone and hidden it in the barn because she knows how the day's gonna end, right? So she hid it in the barn, she picks up the gun. We saw earlier in the episode that she couldn't like bam bam with Teddy's gun. She picks up this gun, she flashes back to the man in black coming to rape her, shoots the motherfucker, and that's that. I really liked it. And then at the end, we have her getting shot, but because she's like overcome her programming, she becomes impervious to bullets. Like, they don't affect her the way that they should. They affect her the way that they would affect a human, which is leaning me toward maybe the man in black is an android who has, like Delores, overcome her programming, or at least like gone around their programming. You know what I mean? And we get some of Will throughout the episode, but really, he's just there to find Delores after she runs off and she kind of passes out. I don't know why she passed out. Like, how does that work, right? I mean, maybe it's her bedtime. Maybe that's how it works. Like, maybe if somebody saves, I don't know. Maybe it's just her bedtime. But anyway, this bitch passed out, and that's pretty much all that Will was there to do. But in, like, the last 15 minutes of the episode, it turned into a very, like, thriller, horror type show. It was, like, edge of your seat craziness, what with the head bashing and the shooting and the not getting raped. It was very intense, and it was like, okay, this is what I came for. This is what I signed up for. I don't care about, you know, going around chasing this imaginary threat with Teddy and his female guest friend. I mean, it's fine, whatever. I like to look at James Marsden, but that's pretty much it. The last 15 minutes of the episode really saved it, and I'm looking forward to episode 4, but this was probably my least favorite of the season so far, and so here's hoping we're gonna pick up. But that's all I've got for today, Planet Earth. Hope you're having a great 2016 so far, everybody. I'm Preston L. Young. Be sure to let me know what you thought of this episode in the comment section down below. Have a great day today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Coming a better version of me.
game. A fun, funny game. Without all the rules, or any of the bothersome winning part. But still, there are sides. You have to choose a side.
D.
My BFF Joe 730.